Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer, so now let's talk silver. Folks, we are going to be doing several giveaways over the next couple of months as we approach 100,000 subscribers. Silver and gold, we're talking about thousands of dollars worth, 1 ounce gold coins, tubes of eagles, you name it, I'm probably going to be giving it, and there's multiple giveaways, so you don't want to miss it. I post daily videos giving you the newest, latest, freshest, most up-to-date, recent information in the world of precious metals, more specifically silver, so you want to subscribe. Let me know in the comment section what you would prefer, 1 ounce gold coin or a couple tubes of eagles, or just what you would like to see in some of these giveaways, as we have a lot of options. So we are going to be covering some very interesting stuff today. Precious metals paradox, unraveling silver's supply deficit dilemma amidst gold's shine. Remember, we had record-breaking supply deficits last year, hundreds of millions of ounces in the red. We do not have enough, or are producing enough silver to keep up with this increasing demand. And this is another interesting article. Solar panels could use nearly all silver supply by 2050. You got to remember, though, there's other uses for silver. So if solar panels would use all of the supply by 2050, cut that in half, because you also have an even bigger sector, which is electric vehicles. So you have electric vehicles, solar panels, 5G towers, cell phones, laptops, medical equipment. Even in the medical world, you have colloidal silver, you have PV cells, which are photovoltaic cells, silver nanoparticles, silver in space equipment, dental alloys. I mean, you name it. If it's electrical, as we advance in this new digital era, this new technological era, we're going to need more and more and more silver, but there's less and less of it. And it's a byproduct, so we find silver by accident. Very few focal silver mines. We're looking for gold, lead, or zinc. If we find some silver, we'll take it. So what are we going to do? We're already hundreds of millions of ounces in the red, as demand exceeded 1.12 billion ounces last year. Over a billion ounces last year. We cannot produce that much. We produce around 850 million ounces on a good year. So what are we going to do? We're going to have to either put a halt to Tesla production or cut back the amount, or we can't go green, as a lot of people have said. If you really think, and I forget who said it, either Ted Butler or David Morgan or Mike Maloney or Keith Newman. There's so many other people, but someone said, I remember vividly reading this, they said, if you think we have enough silver to go green, you are a dreamer and will be sadly mistaken. And that is the sad truth. Yes, we get a pretty penny, but at what cost? So anyways, let's jump into this article, because it goes into some interesting stuff. Deficit in the silver market, talks about what happens next in 2023, and they obviously go over the other stuff. This first part, I'm not gonna read it. It's talking about he's captain of the cricket team. I like giving you the information you need to know, not this extra side stuff. I know you don't care about what I had for breakfast, or I like giving you guys information straight to the point. So let's jump into this. So it starts off to say, in a quirky sort of way, silver is often referred to as the poor man's gold. I call silver gold on steroids. Right now, silver is carrying gold, which should speak for itself. Usually it's gold carrying silver, but things are changing. It has always been a bridesmaid, but never the bride. Silver is often promised to outrun gold, but mainly unable to outperform the yellow metal, but it actually just did that. I made a video about that yesterday. In the current year, too, the story is much the same. Silver began the year on a positive note at $24.29 per ounce. It fell to its lowest level for the year at $22.09. I hope you guys took advantage of that per ounce on March 10th, 2023. Before recovering to its highest level of the year, scaling at $26 on April 14th, 2023, a rise of around 7% over its yearly January price. Now, if you've been stacking silver for more than 2-3 years, you guys know that these are high numbers. Now, yes, we're talking about triple-digit silver eventually, but the average price of silver over the last decade has been around $15. So the old school stackers We look at even $22, and we're like, wow. I remember the July 2016 high of $21 silver. That was extremely high, even just breaking above $20. So if you're a new stacker, you're desensitized to these prices. Like if you joined during the Wall Street silver movement when it was 30, then you see silver down at 22, you would say, holy crap, silver's only $22. But that's because you got in at 30, where a lot of us got in at $14, $15, right? So it really, your perspective of the price depends on when you entered, but that's irrelevant. Right? Whether you got in at $15 or $30, it's irrelevant because we're talking about much higher prices. And if you think silver is too pricey at $30, then you really got to go back and understand what makes silver valuable. So let's look at this. Gold fell by a modest 1.43% to $1,809 per ounce on February 27th, 2023. However, it then climbed to its highest at $2,048 per ounce, up over 11% over its 3-year price. And that's even as the Fed signaled a pause in interest rates. Currently, gold is up by around 4.39% since the beginning of the year, while silver is down around 0.5% for the year. So what ails silver? Why is it struggling to outperform gold? Is the gold to silver ratio at play, or is it a huge deficit in the silver market stalling the white metal? The gold to silver ratio is very interesting. If you guys don't know, it's how many ounces of silver it takes to purchase or equate to 1 ounce of gold. You can actually use the gold to silver ratio to earn free gold or free silver by simply just trading at different times. I'm not going to go too much into that, but historically it's been around 16 to 1 for thousands of years. It used to be actually 8 to 1 because that's the ratio it comes out of the ground. Yes, sometimes it's 7 to 1, sometimes it's 9 to 1, but let's just go with 8 to 1 coming out of the Earth's crust. Every 8 ounces of silver we dig up is about 1 ounce of gold, even though silver is usually thrown away since it's used in technology where gold is re-scrapped and recycled. But even before that, it was actually 2.5 to 1. 2.5 parts silver equals 1 part gold. And that's because back then they saw silver as magical. It can purify water. It has antimicrobial properties. It's the most highly conductive metal for thermal conductivity, electricity, even light sensitivity. You could put silver in milk. It keeps the milk fresh longer, right? Silver was this like magical metal. It responds with other elements like no other metal. Nothing is as useful as silver is, and that's why we use it in technology. Gold is kind of just used as jewelry, and there is some gold in electronics. I used to scrap gold out of cell phones and laptops myself just as a hobby, but silver is definitely more useful. So then the gold to silver ratio of 17 was the closest ideal of 16, as we're referring to 16 to 1. The ideal gold to silver ratio is said to be at 16 to 1, like I was saying, is based on the fact that silver is found to be 16 times the quantity of gold in the Earth's crust. It's actually much lower. It's about 8 to 1. Or if you're equating silver as a byproduct, it could be even lower than that. I don't know why they said 16 to 1. That's not what it comes out of the Earth's crust. It's about 8 to 1. Like I said, I'll fact check this, or you can fact check me anything I say. I am to some degree an expert. I don't like calling myself that, but, I've been studying this, researching this for almost a decade now. I know what I'm talking about. It is much lower than 16 to 1. That was the ratio for thousands of years, but it comes out of the Earth's crust much lower than that. On January 21st, 1980, both gold and silver scaled record levels. Gold scaled its then all-time high of $850 per ounce, while silver climbed to its all-time high of $50 per ounce. And that was during the Hunt brothers, right? The Hunt brothers shenanigans in 1980, which pushed silver to $50. But then we also saw $50 silver in 2011, right? Started from 2008, the credit financial crisis, $1 billion stimulus, and, recession/depression almost, and led to $50 silver 3 years later. I don't want to go over this stuff. Obviously, I just explained all that, right? I just explained everything that paragraph says. Further, gold to silver ratio recently reached its highest level of 126 to 1 in March of 2020. That was when around $11 silver, folks. 3 years ago, silver jumped down to $11 and then climbed up to 25 something. It was the number one performing asset in 2020. Silver was the number one performing asset in the year of 2020. It outbeat gold, it outbeat Tesla stocks, everything. Silver was number one, but I bet you didn't know that unless you watched my videos because nobody admitted it. Nobody talked about it. If it would have been Tesla, or if it would have been Bitcoin or gold even, people would have been writing articles everywhere. But since it was silver, it kind of got swept under the rug and didn't get much attention. But yeah, silver was the number one performing asset in 2020 since it was down to $11 and nearly tripled. Currently, the ratio is volatile in the 78 to 85 range. Indicates there's still enormous potential for silver in the near future. And that is true, right? Silver has enormous potential compared to gold, just looking at the use case of it. So, generally observed that in bull runs, silver climbs much faster. That's why I call it gold on steroids, but it also drops much lower. It's riskier. Some people call it the devil's metal because if gold's going to rise 10%, silver's going to rise 15%, but also vice versa. So you have to be careful, especially if you are like a day trader. Gold usually takes over in times of crisis, geopolitical tensions as a hedge, and that is a perfect way to store. Gold is more for storing wealth. Silver, it can be used as that. They're both safe haven metals, but silver has opportunity beyond just storage as it is used for industrial cases and not only investing. A lot of people just look at silver for the investing side and the micro, but when you step out and look at the macro, when you look at the bigger picture, as I don't plan on selling for 15-20 years, maybe longer, maybe never, actually I want to ask you guys that please in the comment section, let me know when do you plan on selling. A lot of people don't think about that. They just buy it, but they never think about selling. And what price would you sell at? Would you throw in the towel at $50 or would you throw in the towel at $100? A lot of people don't even think about that type of stuff. But if you don't think about it, then you're more susceptible to panic selling or just, you got, this is a game plan, right, folks? It's a silver stacking strategy. We're strategizing. And if you aren't thinking this all the way through, then when it comes to when silver does hit $100, you're kind of in the moment, emotions are running high, you're excited, and you might throw in the towel. But if you could step back right now and think about it, right, and have a game plan, then you're more susceptible to being successful and not making those silly mistakes that a lot of people do when they're impulsively on the spot having to make huge decisions like that. So I do want to jump into this one. I mean, actually, let's cover this last part. I forgot that they also mentioned the deficit. So this is actually the most interesting part of this. I'm glad that I didn't miss that. So this is the deficit in the silver market, and this is very important to look at because we're talking about record-breaking supply deficits last year, and I'm sure it's only going to get worse and worse and worse as silver's demand keeps growing and growing and growing, and it's harder to find silver, and we're looking at different ways to get silver, whether it's mining innovation or recycling or even space mining, which is a thing. It's not going to be a thing soon, but they are considering this someday because if we're using all the silver by the year 2050, what are we going to do, right? We're just going to give up on what are we going to do? We're talking about making the world go green for reasons, not just because. We're talking about global warming. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about serious things. So I'm sure and scientists are actually finally taking note of this, as I've been talking about this for several years. I have been in the last couple of months. If you've watched some of my more recent videos, there's been scientists coming out and actually realizing, holy crap, like this is a thing that we need to focus on and we need to start now before it's too late, which I already think it's too late. But regardless, it is interesting that beyond just silver stackers and silver stacking types of information and sources, we're seeing scientists and other people looking at silver in particular. The Silver Institute, in its report released in April 2023, is quoted as follows: global demand for silver rose by 18% in 2022, 1.24 billion ounces, creating a huge supply deficit, even predicting more shortages in the years to come. I mean, if we already just starting the green revolution, have a demand of 1.24 billion ounces. Imagine by like the year 2025, 2026, 2 billion ounces, 2 billion. What would it be? Yeah, if we already can't keep up with 1.24 billion, imagine when it's 2 billion ounces. Things are going to get very messy. So that's why I say don't give in now. Don't sell at $30. Just hold on. This isn't a get rich quick scheme, right? So silver recorded a deficit of 237.7 million ounces in 2022, the highest shortage on record. Like I said, we had record-breaking supply deficits. The report further stated the deficit of 237.7 million ounces, coupled with a 51.1 million ounces in 2021, wiped away all the cumulative surpluses from the previous decade. Further, the Silver Institute predicted that the shortage of silver in 2023 would be 141 or 2.1 million ounces. However, in spite of the deficit in silver, the silver price did not show any appreciation in the silver price, and that's very, interesting. I think manipulation has a lot to do with this, because on paper, silver should be triple digits easily, right? Quadruple digits easily. Looking at what it's used for, even more so than gold. I mean, silver is more valuable than gold when you look at what it's used for. When gold is used for jewelry and stuff, and silver is used literally to save the planet. We're talking about a huge difference in what it's used for and the value, looking at it from intrinsic value. No matter who says that 1 ounce coin is worth what is irrelevant, because the coin's value is the 1 ounce of silver inside of it, not the price tag. And a lot of people just pay attention to the price tag. So, however, in spite of a deficit, the price did not show any appreciation, but I think it will someday. I do think it will. I just made a video yesterday talking about how people are getting sent to prison. JP Morgan ex-employees are getting sent to prison for manipulating the price, and I do think that that's kind of coming to an end for several reasons. Ted Butler made an amazing article talking about this as well. The report also points out that the huge supply side shortage would not necessarily cause the price to shoot much higher automatically, but for silver, while inventories are falling, huge amounts of metal held by individuals and investors can still bridge the supply deficits. But we're not selling. That's the biggest thing that people don't realize. So what are they going to do? Ban silver? Like the Executive Order 6102 by FDR in 1930, stating that everyone has to turn in their gold. It's now your gold in your safe is owned by the Federal Reserve, and you have to turn it in, or you're going to pay $10,000 or spend 10 years in prison, or both, right? I mean, they have confiscated gold before. Why wouldn't they do that with silver if we're trying to save the planet? So, strangely, last time silver was in such a huge deficit was 1999, when demand outstripped supply by 155 million ounces. Then, too, though, silver price had decreased from $5 in 1998 to $5.22 in 1999, a decline of 6.2%. It's a matter of fact that during the 1990s, the silver market was in deficit for several years, and the silver price was depressed well below $5, or even below $4 per ounce. The deficit in the silver market appeared to continue even during 2000, and after that, obviously, as we know, from around 2004, 2005, supply of silver seemed to outstrip the demand. And we didn't see anything until 2008, really, to 2011, which pushed silver to, as we know, $50. So there's a lot of shenanigans going on, a lot of corrupt banks, and, I do think that one day the fundamentals will outweigh all of the noise. Right, fundamentals of being low supply, high demand shoots the price up. That's investing 101, right? It's rare, it's not plentiful, and I think one day that is going to be the reality that we cannot ignore. No matter what gold's price is, silver's going to do what it does, taking on a life of its own. Whatever stock market volatility is, silver's going to do what its own. Regardless what the dollar index is, silver's going to do what it does, because it's talking about something that's very useful, but it's very scarce. And the other stuff is irrelevant to do with that. Unlike all mined gold, which is entirely with us even today, like I said, most gold is recycled, so it stays in circulation for centuries. But silver is usually lost since it's used in electronics. And I'm glad they brought that up. right? It's a byproduct even. So not even just what they're saying right here as most silver is thrown away. It's also a byproduct. So it's found by accident. That's insane to think about. More than 1.5 million tons of silver had been mined to date, but estimated 90% of all mined silver was lost in landfills. This estimate of 90% is debatable and seems to a view taken by the Western world, USA, whereas most silver was consumed in the industrial usage. As China is the biggest consumer of silver, that also plays a huge role. Probably mere extrapolation has resulted in the theory that 90% of mined silver is being lost to landfills. However, even that contention cannot hold ground given the currently around 50-60% of the total demand for silver is used in industrial purposes. Therefore, much of silver is available in above ground stocks. Right, above ground stocks. Stocks. That's paper. That's a digit on a screen. But if you can't hold it, you don't own it. So it's available in above ground stocks, but is that silver available when those people try to convert those stocks to the physical? No, it is not. Although above ground silver stocks has fallen tremendously over the last several decades, quantum of such silver stocks, a large portion of such identifiable stocks, are with governments, and that is debatable. That's very, very, very important to look at, right? The COMEX admitting that their inventory is near empty, and even the LBMA, the LME, London Metals Exchange, all of them talking about record. They've admitted themselves publicly that their inventories of silver are near empty, and we're just now starting this new age, new technology and solar panels that would use more silver. The inelastic silver supply may be overwhelmed by skyrocketing demand from solar panels, but they haven't even talked about electric vehicles yet, right, folks? We have a lot to look at. I've covered most of this. I'm trying to skim through and see if there's anything else. This is interesting. Further, some reports suggest that the quantity of silver that is still left underground could only last till 2030 or 2035 at best, and with around 70% of mined silver being a byproduct. I'm glad they brought that up as well with other metals. So they've hit the nail on the head pretty much. They didn't mention EVs, electric vehicles, or even 5G towers, but they hit all the important topics as even going into byproducts. So I'm glad this is a very good article. And I'm glad that they said 2030 to 2035 instead of 2050. But like I said, that's just solar panels. But when you incorporate the other uses, it would be a lot sooner than 2050. So when I talk about us running out of silver, I'm talking about that literally, not next year, but we're talking about in the next 5-10 years, even maybe sooner, as some say. I talk about triple-digit silver by the year 2025, 2026. I think by then we won't be able to hide the scarcity, the ever-expanding demand, as there is a direct correlation to silver's price and demand, and just the outright plain fact that we cannot keep up with that demand, as low supply, high demand pushes the price up. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. What do you think about this stuff? I think this was an amazing article. If you did want to purchase some of that shiny stuff, make sure you send an email to Miles Franklin, info@milesfranklin.com. Let him know Silver Slayer sent you. Andy Schechtman is the CEO. Amazing guy, most popular person. He is the most connected person. They will match any major retailer's price. They're one of the only few authorized dealers that can still work with the U.S. Mint. So most of these companies you guys buy from, they don't have access to buy directly from the U.S. Mint, as the U.S. Mint banned everyone from buying from them. They only chose a few authorized dealers. Miles Franklin is one of them, so that should speak for itself. Highly respected. They're the ones that filled that $50 million order from that billionaire, and they pulled it off in 2 days. 900,000 ounces of eagles, or 900,000 eagles, over 100,000 in junk and gold. Andy Schechtman pulled it off in 2 days. Nobody else can pull that off, right? And plus, they're just a very welcoming company. Andy and I do a weekly podcast together, Silver Stacking Podcast. You can check it out. There's a playlist on my channel. It's just great stuff. If you guys want to subscribe, I'm doing lots of giveaways coming up. You don't want to miss those either. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I will see you guys soon. Peace.